Good morning on this Sunday, September 5th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The state's top public health official says anti-vaxxers are disrupting vaccination drives. Also, the former district attorney in Brunswick is indicted on charges related to the Ahmaud Arbery case. And the Buckhead City Hood movement moves ahead of the state capitol. Phil, Kathy, Martha are all here, and Bobby Capel is filling in for Theron. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Well, some surprising news this week when it comes to COVID vaccine drives in Georgia. The state's top public health official says healthcare workers are being harassed while trying to help others.
Many of our line workers who are doing these vaccinations are receiving threats, are receiving hostile emails, or harassing emails.
So much so, Dr. Kathleen Toomey says one vaccination site had to shut down in North Georgia. This as 95% of the patients hospitalized are unvaccinated.
This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. These people are giving their lives to help others.
Well, Governor Kemp also announced this week he'll deploy another 2,500 National Guard troops to help out hospitals that are overwhelmed. Kathy, welcome back this week. Let's just get right to this. No matter where you come down on the vaccine issue, why interfere with the people who made the decision to get the vaccine?
For the life of me, I can't figure out what on earth the useful strategy of doing this would be for. I don't know why people are doing it. I think, we're at a time where people are getting tired and they're angry and upset. But this does nothing. The way we get out of this is for people to get vaccinated, for people to listen to public health guidelines and wear masks and be cautious. And that's how we get out of this. And if we keep up this nonsense, and it's not even nonsense, now it's dangerous behavior, we're going to find us with another variant, and one day we're going to have to reinvent the vaccine to get our way out. And that's the strategy we should be thinking about. How do we stop this now?
Phil, were you surprised to hear that the threats were so bad that one vaccination site was forced to shut down?
Well, that is really disturbing, and I have to think that every decent, civilized person would have to condemn all of this reaction. I think Kathy does have a point. I was reading a piece in the Wall Street Journal just the other day that there's a lot of meanness out there with people that normally wouldn't be mean or rude. And I think it goes back to COVID and all sorts of the left-right political divide in this country. But certainly harassing workers like that can't be condoned.
Yeah, I think some of those mean people sometimes are on our Facebook page for the Georgia Gang. But Martha, here we are shattering hospitalization records when it comes to the pandemic. Several professors are leaving their jobs over the lack of a mask mandate from the university system of Georgia. What do you think about that?
I think people have to make those kind of decisions. I still don't support mandates. I support giving the best information and having people do what's right for them. But I support the vaccinations. It's terrible to think that people are trying to interfere with that. I did an interview this week with Lieutenant Governor candidate Jean Seaver, and she gave a very poignant story about her last 18 days dealing with COVID and how sick she was. She had to be hospitalized. She got the antibodies. She had COVID before, and so she thought she had the antibodies. That's why she wasn't vaccinated. But I wasn't expecting her to tell that story, and it was very poignant, and it was an important story to tell. And we've got to allow this message to get out. This business of moving the goalpost every time you answer a question is not going to work. I do still think that it shouldn't be mandated by the government, though. I do think that it should be that you give the good, best medical advice, and people take that good, best medical advice.
But Bobby, should that apply to school systems when, the students don't have much of a choice if they want to be in person? Some parents are suing the school system in Gwinnett County over its mask mandate.
First of all, people harassing folks who are trying to get the vaccination, it's an absolute disgrace. And it started a year and a half ago with politicization of a virus that has nothing to do with politics until Donald Trump decided to make it to do with politics. So it's a sad state of our country right now, and also in the state of Georgia. It's disgraceful to see this kind of thing happen. I'm glad to see everyone on this panel condemn it. As far as mask mandates in schools go and protests, these children cannot choose on their own to get vaccinated. vaccinated because they are not old enough. We have mask mandates for children in Fulton County schools where there are hot zones, and they are completely appropriate. If you're a parent and you care about your child and you're sending your child to school, how could you possibly want to put them in danger when you see ICUs filling up in children's hospitals across the state? It's ridiculous.
Martha, I see your hand up.
Well, look, Bobby, I think your message was great, but by starting it out to say that the politicization of COVID started with the Trump administration is just wrong. And there's been, you had President Biden talk about the politicization of the vaccine. You had Vice President Harris said, oh, if Trump suggests the vaccine, I'm not going to get it. There's been politicization on all sides. Your message is great, but you started it out with the wrong thing.
Bobby, go ahead and respond.
Well, unfortunately, Donald Trump was, and I say a big unfortunately, Donald Trump was president when this all broke out. So he would have definitely been the one to have started this. He could have taken us down the road to decide to unify us as a country. He could have used this as a moment to try and get together as a country and stand for something that we're going to keep each other healthy. He decided to go the complete opposite way, of course, and this is the result.
Y'all have your hands up. I want 15 seconds from everybody. Martha, will go to you, and then Kathy, and then Phil.
Well, just one quick statement. There is no president other than Donald Trump that could have done Operation Warp Speed. Okay, he is the one reason why we have the vaccine. There is no Democrat or Republican from the normal political system that would have done this. So we need to give credit where credit is due.
Kathy?
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I think anybody that was in the position at that period of time could have done that. And I agree with Bobby that Trump was there. It was his timing. He could have set us off on a different pace with this, and he didn't. But I just have to say that, leadership is about doing things that are hard, not just, kind of playing with the politics of that. And right now we're seeing that across the board, both parties. And we see it with this governor who's just not willing to take it on the chin to help us out of this. And sending kids to hospitals, especially when children's hospitals are filling up, is a very, very dangerous situation.
Phil, go ahead. Last word on this, because I really want to move on.
Right. Well, it's a shame these Democratic panelists on our show, God bless them, but they don't like Trump, then they're going to give him credit for anything. But I agree with Martha. Operation Warp Speed was excellent. I'm glad President Trump did that. Money was put forward by him so that the manufacturers could get those dosages out. Biden never gave him any credit. And also, let's remember, though, we got to try to balance the coronavirus versus keeping businesses and the economy open. If the Democrats had their way, they'd shut down everything again.
All right, I want to move on because many Georgians are reacting to this week's U.S. Supreme Court ruling that allowed a restrictive abortion law to go into effect in Texas. But Bobby, let me ask you, the justices did not rule on the constitutionality of the law, but what could this mean for Georgia's law here?
I was actually shocked to see the Supreme Court decided not to put a stay on this, even though it leans conservative at this moment with all the Trump appointees on there. I was, happy to see Chief Justice Roberts siding with the minority in this. But this is a shocking event for this country, and to treat it as anything other is not. It's not in keeping with reality. I think it shows that there is a real appetite out there. There's going to be on the Democratic side to ensure that we expand the Supreme Court. And if those justices at the Supreme Court wanted to ensure that they wanted to see their power diluted and adding more members to the court, keep ruling like this, and they'll make sure it happens.
Martha, what do you think? What do you think this ruling means for the Georgia law?
I think it makes it easier for the Georgia law to be implemented. And I think that what the court did say was that they weren't ruling, as you pointed out, on the constitutionality. What they were saying was that until the law goes into place and they actually have real damages that are involved related to people being fined or that kind of thing, then they could take that up. I think they did the right thing from a constitutional basis.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. We're out of time for this block. Coming up, a new development in the Ahmaud Arbery case. The former Brunswick district attorney charged for her handling of the case. That's next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
In a new twist in the Ahmaud Arbery case, former Brunswick District Attorney Jackie Johnson is charged with obstruction of a police officer and violating her oath of office for allegedly showing favoritism to the defendants in the case. Phil, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to take a contrarian view. Let's step back a second. The former DA of the Brunswick Circuit is charged with obstructing a police officer and then violating the oath of office, and that's a felony, and that's serious. But I'm a little concerned that we're going down a slippery slope here. I think that when you start threatening DAs, that could be dangerous. DAs give breaks to people all the time. I think this DA thought she was doing right and giving a break to Travis McMichael, one of the people that are charged, of course, with the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, a very high-profile case where the black man was killed. And so I think that you've got to be careful when DAs cut breaks all the time, and if you're threatening them for giving them a break, rightly or wrongly, I think you're going to have a situation where DAs could just simply throw the book at people and be done with it. They don't want to be accused of this. So it's a tricky thing. It's a judgment call by a DA, and I'll be interested to see how this unfolds.
Martha, you didn't raise your hand, but I saw you shaking your head.
Well, look, Bill said it was a contrarian view, and what I think is the Ahmaud Arbery case is such a sad one because it clearly has very open racist overtones, more so than many of the other cases that we've looked at. And Brunswick handled it in such a great way where they had peaceful prayer vigils every day for months. No one ever covered it. The news media didn't cover it. They didn't look at how this community came together. And I believe this district attorney was wrong. I think she gave a pass to these folks because they'd worked for her before, and it may be a judgment call on her part, but I think it was wrong. I think there hasn't been enough attention paid on this case.
Kathy, I have a feeling you agree with Martha.
I do agree with Martha. I don't think I can say it any better than she did. So thank you so much for summarizing it in that way, Martha. I'm right there with you on this.
All right, well, let's get to an update on the U.S. Senate race. On the Republican side, Agriculture Commissioner Gary Black was endorsed by former Congressman Doug Collins, but the big endorsement came from former President Trump for Herschel Walker. No surprise there. I guess, Bobby, let's go to you on this one.
Yeah, no surprise at all. He was on The Apprentice, if I believe my memory is correct, at some point. Herschel Walker was with Donald Trump. So not surprised at all. They're tight. Donald Trump had been talking about the fact that he had expected Herschel Walker to run. So there it is. There's the endorsement. No surprise there at all. As far as the Doug Collins endorsement, it's interesting. But to me, it doesn't signal a shift in voters that we'd see the same thing underneath. Because if we recall, I mean, Doug had a tough time in his primary against Kelly Loeffler, who was really an unknown senator before she came onto the scene and didn't really have a lot of likability. And he lost in that primary as well. So I don't know what his support really means.
Phil, why don't you let us know, what does this mean? You've got Gary Black being endorsed by Congressman Doug Collins, but you also have Herschel Walker being endorsed by President Trump.
Well, I think all of the panelists here would agree on one thing. Fundraising is super important in especially a race like a U.S. Senate race. I think that the Collins endorsement doesn't mean much. He's friends with Gary Black. A lot of times in politics we've seen it. Friends are loyal and they stick with friends whether they're going to win or not. But let's look after September 30th at the fundraising. My prediction would be that Gary Black is going to flatline and Herschel Walker is already going to be raising some money. He's had a fundraiser already in Atlanta the other day, and the Trump PACs will be weighing in. And so let's look after September 30th. If Herschel is running away in the fundraising, that's obviously going to cement him as a front runner for right now. And what the Republicans want in Georgia is they want somebody popular and they want somebody with money that can take on Warnock, the incumbent, who has an incredibly large war chest right now.
Kathy, let's move on to Stacey Abrams. Still no word on whether she'll make another run for governor. You can weigh in on that too. But in an interview with a bitter Southerner, she said if the stars align, she intends to one day run for president.
Well, she's been saying that for some time, that was on her list of things to do in her life, and so it's no surprise that she would be reasserting that, somebody asked the question or whatever. She's got an incredible amount of attention nationwide and frankly globally focused on her right now, and I understand her putting out there what it is she wants to do ultimately. So, it's not a huge surprise, but I just want to say one thing. about Herschel Walker. He is simply not qualified to be a U.S. Senator, period. And I think we all need to be really thoughtful and not think that the only thing that qualifies you to be in elected office is whether you can raise enough money and get endorsements from, famous people like Trump. Ultimately, you have to do the job. And so I really hope Georgia Republicans will rally around the candidate that actually can perform if elected. I don't think they'll win, but I'd rather not see us go down this kind of path. It's not good for the state.
All hands are going up again. Go ahead, Martha.
Well, look, what's frustrating about this endorsement, which was totally expected, is that there are ties to Trump in all of these candidates that are in the race. Gary Black rallied farmers early on in 2016 for Donald Trump that made a difference in the kind of votes he got. Kelvin King organized his Black Voices Matter, Black Voices for America group that was there. Lathan Sadler worked in the White House when Trump was there. So, there seems to be this situational loyalty that no one didn't expect for him to endorse Herschel Walker or Burt Jones for that matter. But there were other people in both of those races that actually worked harder for Donald Trump than the people that he endorsed. And that's what bothers me about it.
Bobby, if you guys can make it quick, we'll go to Bobby and then Phil.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with Kathy. I wish that were not the way we chose candidates in elections these days. But unfortunately, money and cash is king when it comes to elections, because if you can't get your message out, whether you are good at governing or not, no one's going to know who you are. So the fundraising is going to be huge. And as far as the endorsement of Donald Trump goes in a Republican field and other folks doing the work, you also had, if you recall, Casey Cagle, who was out there running when Brian Kemp was endorsed by Donald Trump. So, this is just the way it goes in politics.
Phil, last word.
Well, I think, Kathy, that was a cheap shot on Herschel Walker. I mean, you've got Democrats like John Ossoff. He's never held a real job in his life, and he got to be a U.S. Senator, and Raphael Warnock was a rookie. There's a lot of rookies that you may not think are qualified, but that's why you get on a campaign trail and you get in the arena. You might get bloodied, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And so I think Walker's got a great chance in terms of capturing the Republican nomination and going on from there.
Quick rebuttal. Go ahead, Kathy.
Just to say, both Ossoff and Warnock had worked in politics for years and had done a lot of exceptional work in public policy. Herschel Walker has never come anywhere near that kind of experience and just doesn't deserve to be senator from Georgia.
All right, lots more to debate on Herschel Walker. We'll be doing it in the coming months. Coming up, the Buckhead City Hood movement gains steam under the Gold Dome. Stay tuned.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The Buckhead City Hood movement gets another powerful ally under the Gold Dome. State Senator Clint Dixon signed on as a co-sponsor. He also happens to be the governor's floor leader. Martha, what does this mean?
Well, I think it means that you're going to get a fair shot on in this particular legislative session, and that there's a little more steam. It had looked a few weeks ago like this movement had lost its steam, but it hasn't, and I think that's a real indicator of it.
Bobby?
Yes, I think you called my name, but I lost it here. Yes, if you're asking me, I think it is, obviously it's going to be moving forward, but I think the issue that is before voters right now that live in Buckhead is there is a mayoral election and a council race coming up here in November. It would be the easiest and best way to weigh in on their future.
We're going to talk about those, but Kathy, over to you.
I'm going to start referring to this as Buckset. This is going to be the Georgia version of Brexit, where we ask for something for political reasons and then end up with a mess. I don't think it's going to pass, but the ultimate goal of this is to turn out Republicans in the general election next year to influence the governor's race, as has the Senate Bill 202, as have lots of other things that have been going on in the election arena in this state. So let's just start calling it Buckset and see where it goes.
Buckset. Phil, what do you think?
Well, I think I could introduce Kathy to a lot of Democrats and liberals, let alone Republicans and conservatives in the Buckhead business section of Atlanta that want out. I mean, let's remember that murders are out of control, shootings, rapes. I mean, you've got a crime wave. No wonder people, not just in Buckhead, but in Atlanta, are not just concerned, they're angry. And yeah, there's a mayoral election and crime and public safety is the topic. But going back to Martha's point, I think that it's probably going to get a sympathetic ear from the Republicans that control the legislature. If you can go through a feasibility study and have various things that a city can operate with and then have the people vote on it, I think that's important. I think the message of the Buckhead City Hood folks is let's just vote on it. And if it passes the legislature, it would be on the ballot in November 2022.
Well, let's talk about the Atlanta mayor's race because two candidates are up on the airwaves. Former Mayor Kasim Reed is focused on crime. Sharon Gay's ad talks about her work on the West Side development. Kathy, what do you think about this strategy?
Well, it's going to be very, very expensive to be in this race. You know, political consultants will spend your money if you let them. And so getting up on the air this early in the race is pretty extraordinary. It certainly does happen, but we don't usually see that here. Which means that on the back end, candidates are going to have to raise more money. But what Sharon Gay's doing in this particular instance is trying to raise her name recognition in a crowded field where she doesn't have much name recognition. And I think it's backfired a little bit because her work as a lawyer representing developers all over the city have left us with some serious consequences. And I think those will be factors that maybe she didn't want to raise on TV.
Bobby, you are a political consultant, so what do you think about the strategy? Because if I'm running for mayor in Atlanta, I mean, to me, the number one issue is crime.
Absolutely. And if you are running TV ads and you're not talking about crime, I think you're making a mistake right now. You're missing the issue. It is a single issue election right now for voters in this race. In other years, it's been different, but that is my personal take on this. I also think you will see a direct line from the person who puts the most points on television, in other words, spends the most money on TV, with who is going to be in the runoff with Kasim Reed. That is my prediction. I think you'll see Kasim Reed go to the runoff, and I think you'll see whoever it is, because this is such a crowded field and because so many of these people are unknown to the entire city. Yes, they serve on certain council seats, but they don't have that cachet yet with the voters. And the only way to build that is through name recognition and name ID. That's done through direct mail, and that's done through television.
And Phil, to that extent, when do you think we'll see Felicia Moore get up on the airwaves?
You'll see Council President Felicia Moore on television probably by mid-September. And again, we all have to look at the fundraising numbers. And I think it's very interesting. Yes, former Mayor Kasim Reed has all this Hollywood and liberal money coming in. But Felicia Moore, 84% of her donors, if you do some research, they're Atlanta residents. They are grassroots. And I think that you cannot underestimate Felicia Moore. I think there will be a runoff. I think that basically what you're going to see is maybe Felicia Moore and Kasim Reed in the same race. And then what are the others going to do? That's runoffs are very tricky.
Martha, weigh in here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Bobby that safety is job one, public safety is job one. That's the only thing they should be talking about right now. That should be the number one issue. I know there are other issues in Atlanta, but that's the people that are going to get into the runoff, the people that make the best case on keeping Atlantans safe.
Bobby, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to mention to Phil's point, it is nice to have donors from Atlanta if you're Felicia Moore, but the reality is the money gets spent either way, and no one really cares when you're actually putting the money into the television ads where that money came from. It's the amount that people need.
That's a good point, because I think a lot of the candidates say, you know, all of my money came from the city of Atlanta, or 80%. Do voters pay attention to that, Phil?
No.
Well, I think that grassroots win elections along with TV ads. Bobby, I hope Bobby's not forgetting that. He's supposed to be a consultant. So those checks from people that live mean a lot. And so I think that Hollywood donors don't vote. So it's rallying your base, getting your yard signs out, and getting checks from people in the actual district where there's an election.
All right, we got to leave it there, everybody, because coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Sometimes we talk too much, but it's a good debate. So we only have about 2 minutes for winners and losers. Phil, we'll start with you.
Well, believe it or not, Lori, I'm going to start with praising some Democrats, and specifically a couple members of Congress who are Democrats in Georgia, Carolyn Bordeaux and David Scott. Why am I praising them? Because they have the courage to go against their own party and their own president and calling it for what it is, the catastrophic Afghanistan retreat, the bungled, unplanned evacuation. Most Americans were for withdrawing, but that's not the point. And those Democrats that are criticizing Biden, and rightly so, I appreciate that.
All right, Kathy, over to you.
Hey, I just returned from being out of the country, and even though I'm a huge fan of the CDC and I'm proud that they're here in our state, they have a form that travelers have to sign to get back into the country, and it is a total pointless waste of time. And if anybody at the CDC would like to discuss it with me, I'm easy to find.
All right. Thank you. Martha, over to you.
Well, my winners, of course, are all the frontline healthcare workers, especially at Northeast Georgia Health System in my neck of the woods, but all around the state. There are places where you can donate through the foundations at the hospitals, as well as other places to help those frontline workers. They don't want you coming to the hospital with sandwiches, but you can log on and do that, and I hope that you will. And then I just want to say a shout out to Jean Seaver, who's recovering from COVID-19 and who shared her story so poignantly on the air the other day.
All right, Bobby.
All right, I'll make it quick. I just want to say this is a shout out to the folks at the East Lake Foundation and the Cousins family who helped put on a wonderful golf tournament called the Tour Championship here in Atlanta this weekend, for which Phil is headed out to right after we tape this.
All right, and I have a feeling that might be where Theron is today. But yeah, they put on a great tournament, so it'll be nice to watch that. Thanks, everybody, and thank you all so much for joining us. Make it a great week. Hope you have a wonderful long weekend, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.